Go in. Um, right
Cool. Can we
now,
just shoot the shit for like a few minutes until people
yeah,
join? I
yeah, for
can
sure.
say that because no one's here yet.
Yeah, zero viewers. It's okay. Let's let this sit for a bit. I guess what have you been up to recently outside of work?
Outside of work, that's a great question. So actually, because we're remote first, I have
Mm.
been traveling. So
Oh,
I just got back to San Francisco after spending a few weeks in New York, a few weeks
oh,
in Toronto, and a month in
wow.
Barcelona, working
Okay,
remote the whole time.
wow, that's really cool. Traveling all the big cities.
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun. I mean, it wasn't like on purpose so much.
Mhm,
I had family things in Toronto, had
mhm,
a wedding to go to in New York, and I had,
mhm.
I guess, friends in Barcelona. But
Oh,
yeah,
that sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of big plans.
yeah, yeah. I like getting out of the city sometimes.
Mm,
I just like changing things up. Like I love San
yeah,
Francisco, but also it's fun to have variety.
yeah, for sure. And honestly, being at Cohere remote first, you really get to do that
Yeah,
as often as you want to.
yeah, I love it. That definitely, obviously I didn't join Cohere for that, but that was definitely, definitely a
Yeah,
perk. Definitely caught my eye.
absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, I guess I can start kicking this off for now. Welcome so far for everyone that's watching. This is our third Maker Spotlight session, and this is just a series of events where our community ambassadors or our community members or people from our internal side they present their personal projects with Cohere. This is live streamed to all of our socials. We've got LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and yeah, we mainly interact with our community through our Discord channel. So make sure to check that out later. I'm Claire. I'm the developer relations intern here at Cohere, and I'm here to introduce Leila Currie. And she's a member of our technical staff at Cohere. So, yeah, today Leila will be presenting her project, which is called Condense, and this is a Chrome extension that uses Co-Summarize to help you summarize large amounts of text. And it's really cool stuff. It's really helpful for a lot of students, a lot of people that do research, and yeah, I guess we can kick this off. Take it away, Layla.
Awesome. Hey everyone. So my name is Leila and I work at Cohere as a member of technical staff, basically a software engineer on our model serving team. So my day job is all about um, basically making sure that our models are live online all the time for people to use them, and all about keeping the models up, working as efficiently as possible, as fast as possible, highest throughput, as cost efficient as possible, all of that stuff. But today I'm going to talk to you about something a little bit different, which is Condense, an app that I made. Let me just start sharing my screen and go back to the beginning. Here we are. Okay. So Condense is a Chrome extension that summarizes web pages. And I built it when I first joined Cohere just to get a sense of like how our product works. I wanted to be able to like, I guess, have empathy with their users and understand how people interact with the models that I work on serving. Um, so, I mean, the best way to show this is to show some examples. So blog posts, news articles, and educational material can all be summarized with Condense. And you'll see that this purple header loads up top of the page, and that is the condensed summary. And so this here is a blog post about Coral, our new knowledge assistant for enterprises, basically a chatbot that can cite sources. And you can see up here, Condense gives a condensed summary of what is on this page. Cohere has launched Coral, a knowledge assistant for enterprises. Coral can help employees complete their business tasks by providing relevant and helpful answers. It goes on a little longer, but as you can see, it is a summary of what is on this page. Um, you can also use it to summarize like articles online. So this is a New York Times article about Cohere and I guess you could say like AI and LLMs in general. It's kind of long, it goes on a bit. But if you just want like the TLDR, it's at the top right here in the condensed summary header. So yeah, the race for the next big thing is heating up. Startups like Cohere, which recently raised money, looking to challenge the big players. So, if you want to zip through your news in the morning a little faster, this can be super helpful. You can also use it to summarize like educational posts. So this is a post where Jay, who is another member of technical staff at Cohere, he talks about what a transformer is. It's a pretty foundational part of modern LLMs. And, I would definitely recommend reading this article in detail, but if you just want, you know, a shorter overview before you dive in, you can look at the header. Tells us that the transformer was introduced in this very famous paper, Attention is All You Need. It's a popular choice for a lot of NLP, and it uses attention mechanisms to process data. And I think the attention is a really important part of transformers, and that is captured here in the summary. So that's just like a little taste of what Condense can do. So now for like the interesting part for us technical people is how does this actually work? So at a high level, the extension reads the text from the website. To do that, it finds the main HTML container on the page. It extracts the visible text, and it also makes sure that the text that it extracts is under 100,000 characters because that's the limit for Cohere's summarize endpoints. And then once it's got the text, the extension sends it to the summarize endpoint. That's Cohere's product. I will go into the playground and documentation a bit in a sec. But then the endpoint basically sends back a response, which is the summary. And then the Chrome extension injects a header with that summary at the top of the web page. And that's the purple header that you see. But yeah, so some interesting stuff to look at is the playground and the documentation for Cohere's summarize endpoints. Let's go to the playground first. So I have I've already pasted in the text from a Wikipedia article about ice cream. And there we go at the top. That's the condense header coming in. But basically, this playground is a really cool tool for letting you play around with the different endpoints that Cohere offers. So here I'm going to focus on summarize, but you can also play around with the generate, classify, and embed endpoints. So yeah, when you load it, I guess at first it won't have any text, but say you pasted the text in, the cookies keep it around if you leave the page. But anyways, you click run. And at first you're using auto parameters, but anyways, the endpoint is preparing a summary of the text that I gave it. And, it's a pretty solid overview of what ice cream is. Ice cream can be a colloid. That's interesting. I don't know what that is, but I will take this at its word. And so like a really cool part about the playground is not only can you see like what sort of summaries you'll get from different inputs, you can also play around with different parameters for the endpoint. So there's auto length, but you can also ask for short length, and that'll give you a much shorter summary. Let's give it a sec. It's a little slower than normal. A lot slower than normal. Let's see. Okay, so that was a very slow generation. It's usually not that slow, but anyways, voila, it's a very short summary. And, if I was going to write a short summary about ice cream, it would probably look pretty similar to this. Give that a plus. And so you can do this with like different lengths. Let's put it to long just so I can show you formats. So auto will usually default to paragraph, which is what this is, but you can also ask for bullet point output. Let's look at that. And then there's also some more advanced parameters, which I will get to in a sec. All right, and here we go. We've got some bullet points about ice cream. That's cool. I didn't know that. Okay, so let's go to medium. Let's go back to paragraph, just because that's my preferred format. So these other models are actually usually more relevant for generation. For summarizing, I think sticking with summarize extra large is a pretty good idea. For extractiveness, that's an interesting one. So extractiveness, it's kind of similar to length, but it's basically how much detail do you want to extract from the text. And we've got these little tooltips here that will also, I guess more specifically, it's paraphrasing versus how verbatim it is. Let's go for low extractiveness. Let's see what happens when the model is doing a lot of paraphrasing. So I imagine this is basically a summary of like more details that appear in the text. But let's see if we can find that exact phrase. Nope, we can't find that exact phrase anywhere in the original text. But what about now if we do go for high extractiveness? So say we're looking to just pull out specific sentences that already exist in the original text. And I feel obliged to say, as someone who is responsible for serving models, they're usually not this slow. We did have some latency issues yesterday, so it looks like they are continuing, but have no fear, the summaries are coming. So another thing we can play with is randomness, temperature. And so that basically is, you can kind of think about it as like creativity. Oh yeah, and so back to the extractiveness. Let's see if this appears in the original text. No, it doesn't. Maybe this. If I was a little more familiar with this exact text, I would try to show you more specifically where these sentences come from, but I guess the general takeaway is that because the attractiveness is high, you can see that this sort of reads a little more Wikipedia-y than the last summary we had, which was at a low extractiveness, more paraphrased. Back to temperature. So when temperature is like really high, let's say 1, you will get, let's say, more creative, potentially more wacky summaries, and also they will change much more each time you rerun. Great. So this one isn't too wacky, I guess, because we are summarizing a pretty straightforward thing. But I think if I rerun it, we'll see that we get a pretty different summary. So let's see, there's street vendors, ice cream parlors, and refrigeration mentioned this time. Let's see what happens next time. All right, this time we get liquid nitrogen. Cool. There's still an ice cream parlor, but there's nothing about refrigeration, or I think street vendors were also mentioned. But if we go back to, if we like pare down to randomness 0, you'll get the same summary. If not every time, then like almost every time. I think every time. Frozen desserts, origins unclear, originating in Persia. Let's rerun it. Same temperature 0. Okay, yep, and we're getting, I guess I forget if it's exactly the same, but we are getting at least, at the very least, that very specific fact about Persia again. So yeah, if you want to like control getting the same summary back over and over again, you'll want a lower temperature, if not temperature 0. And you can play around with all kinds of values in the middle too. Additional command. This is sort of interesting. So like in general, the summary is the generative model behind the summarization endpoint is being asked just to summarize the text that it's given. But with an additional command, you can provide additional input. So basically, you can ask for like different styles of summaries in natural language. You can ask it for like specific things. I like to ask it, this one's sort of fun sometimes. Explain it or summarize it like you're explaining to a 5-year-old. Let's see if we can get like a super child-friendly summary of what ice cream is. All right, frozen desserts. First recipe was published in Mrs. Mary Eel's receipts. I mean, that sounds like the kind of thing a kid would like. Dedicated to confectionery. So anyways, the sky's the limit with the additional commands. You can ask for all sorts of weird and fun things. Cool. So yeah, that's basically the playground. And then as you're developing, this is a page I come back to over and over again. This is the documentation for the summarized endpoints, and it lists all the parameters you can give. We saw all of these in the playground: format, length, model, text is the actual text we give it. And then you can also just like try it. You can see what the request would look like in different languages. This is Python, but you could do Node, Shell. I guess everyone can see my trial key. That's fine. And then you can see what the response looks like. And if you click through here, you can see more specifically what you'll get in the body of the response. Alrighty, so that was a very high-level look at how the condense extension works, sort of a deep dive into the playground and the API for figuring out how to work with Cohere's summarize endpoints. Now I'll dive a little bit more into the code for the Chrome extension, just because I think think it's interesting to see how this gets used in sort of like real life apps. So this is a public repo, Cohere AI Sandbox Condense. There's a ton of information in the README for a lot of it is what I'm going over here, but if you want to reference after this presentation's over. Oh, and look, the condense summary has come in at the top. It gets the name wrong, but it is a Chrome extension that uses the co-summarize API, so that's pretty cool. And so the bulk of the code you want to look at is in condense. That's where the app lives. So manifest.json, that's just Chrome extension boilerplates, not particularly interesting, but you need it for the extension to work. Most of the interesting stuff is in scripts. So we've got our jQuery, which we use for interacting with the web page, but content.js is where most of the logic for the extension lives. Let's start at the bottom. We have a main function, which is called when the page loads. We get the API key. And if there's no API key, we ask for it and tell people where to get one. And then if there is an API key, then we can do the actual summarizing. So we get the visible text. We log it to the console just as like a nice like feature for like when you're developing. A production app wouldn't need this. But yeah, it is helpful when you're playing around with the code. And then we summarize on the truncated visible text. So a little more in detail how this works. To get the visible text, we find the HTML body. We look for either content or main in the body if they exist, just to scope down the text we're looking at. And then we, let's see. Yes, so we look at all of the elements in the body. We see if it's text or not. We see if it's hidden or not. And if it's not hidden and it is text, then we add it to our visible text, and also keeping track of the character limits. So remember that the API only supports up to 100,000 characters. So if we get past the character limit, we don't add on any more text. Then we just join it all with a new line for little readability. It's not, that's not mandatory, but it's a little helpful, especially if you're debugging and trying to look at the text. Yeah, so this is a function for checking if the element is hidden or visible. And then here, this is sort of the bulk of the interacting with Cohere's API. So given text, we're trying to summarize it. And so first, we need to retrieve the API key from Chrome storage. And then we set up the HTTP request that we send to the summarize endpoint at Cohere. So this is pretty much boilerplate, posts, JSON. Here's the API key. The source is sandbox condense. And then this is more interesting. This is the parameters that we give to the endpoint. So this is what we were playing with in the playground: the length, the format, the model, the extractiveness, the temperature. The text is the text. And for our additional command, we're telling the endpoint that this text is coming from a web page, just so it has a little more context. So yeah, and then we hit the endpoint with our request, read the response. If there's no summary in the response, we display an error in the header, and otherwise we display the summary with a TLDR in the front, just for fun. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then we also have the function for displaying the header. So given the text, which is the summary, we create a div with some CSS styling. Yeah, choose margin, color, font, and then insert the header just before the document body. So yeah, that is the bulk of the Chrome extension. And then I'll also just point out that we have these options, and actually options is maybe slightly a misnomer. It's really, for us, just the API key. So, but the API key comes as part of the extension options. So if you go to options in the condense extension, it'll let you fill in an API key. And so this is the JavaScript that supports that. And this is the HTML for that little options form that we just saw. Yeah, and that's it. It's a very simple little app. So actually, full disclosure, this was my first ever Chrome extension. So I can tell you, it actually isn't that hard to make a Chrome extension, and especially using Cohere's API, which is like dead simple. You know, pretty much anyone could make an extension like this. You could even use the code in this repo. You can fork off of it and build your own things from it. Yeah, so that is how it works. Okay, now how can you use this? How can you get in on this fun? Go to cohere.com, sign up for an account. You need to get an API key, and then I have instructions on the GitHub repos README that make it very straightforward to, download the code for the Chrome extension and load it into Chrome and start using it. Okay, so there are some limitations to condense the app as it stands right now. So some of these are limitations from the endpoint. So the summarize endpoint only supports between 250 and 100,000 characters of input text. So if you have fewer characters, it won't work, and if you have more characters, you'll get an error. Summarization also works best when you feed it text that actually has a logical summary. If you feed it sort of a bunch of text that isn't really logically connected in any way, you will get weird answers back. I'll just be upfront about that. It'll be confusing. So, you know, just like, I guess maybe the takeaway from that is that the model, if you were to give a summary about random text, you would say this is just random text. I guess the model isn't very good at saying that. It tries to actually give a summary, and if there's nothing, it'll start to hallucinate. Also, the function that I wrote to get visible text, it doesn't actually capture all the visible text on the page. It is just a heuristic that in most cases will capture most of the text. Also, the header, the purple header sometimes gets hidden behind other headers on the page because it's also a pretty simple heuristic for injecting it. It could definitely be done in a more robust way, but this is just a side project that I worked on, and so, 80% of the time was good enough for me, and it works about that much. And then the parameters that we use for summarizing are fixed in the code. You saw that they were hard-coded in the repo. And so you're always going to get a summary with the exact same characteristics with the code as it is now. That being said, there are some really cool options for customizations that you can do building on top of the code in the Sandbox Condense repo. And I would be thrilled. I would love it if someone, any of you, wanted to fork that repo and build on top of it. There's a very permissive license. It is there to showcase our APIs, and I would love to see people either building on top of this app or using it and adapting the code to do something either slightly or entirely different. But that being said, here are some, if Cohere was going to pay me to keep developing and maintaining this app, here are some things I would do. And here are some things that would be cool if someone else wanted to do. So, if you wanted to just practice playing around with this code, you could allow users to set their own options in the API. So like customize like the extractiveness, the temperature, the additional command, so on. You could wait until the page contents have finished loading before you try to read the text. So, modern web pages use a lot of asynchronous JavaScript, and Condense right now is fully synchronous. It just runs on initial page load. It doesn't have any sense that like maybe the main body is being loaded asynchronously, and so sometimes we'll see text on the page after it's loaded, but the extension won't have seen it. It'll be running on basically nothing, and you'll get some weird, not really relevant summary because it's not getting the actual page contents to summarize. Another thing that would be cool is allowing specific websites to be included or excluded. So for example, we've been playing around with this internally, and I think we hit this problem, the loading using Google Docs. And so I think in the code I did this. I excluded Google Docs from Condense just because it was annoying. And so there's like, more websites that you could do that with based on your preferences. Or maybe, you only summarize pages when a user explicitly asks for it. We could be smarter about injecting the header so it doesn't get hidden sometimes. Also, it might be cool to summarize text that people highlight, not just the whole thing. Like maybe there's a specific part of this web page that I'm curious and seeing a summary for. Playing around with the UX is always fun. And then also maybe some better error handling. So just ideas. Feel free to take any of these ideas and work on it. Again, you can fork the code base and work on this on your own. You can even, release it as your own app. That would be awesome. But yeah, that's it. And I think now we're going to move over to Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Leila. That was super cool. I'd love to implement that into my own laptop, use that Chrome extension. I was thinking about like how it was really cool to see all the different parameters that you can use to shape the Chrome extension based on what you want to extract. And also I'm a student, so like that would be super useful when I'm doing research or writing like
totally.
papers.
Yeah, like I said, please,
yeah.
please feel free to adapt it. You count too, Claire.
Absolutely. Everyone, it's open source. I believe the sandbox repo is already in the comments, so if you guys want to take it and play around with it, feel free. I will probably do that on my own time.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is now the Q&A section, so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to throw them out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Discord. We'll get all the questions going. I guess for now, I'd just like to know, like, what was your personal motivation in creating this project? And, like, did you encounter something that was maybe a bit frustrating? You wanted to understand a website, but it was too long to read. Like, what inspired you?
Yeah, I think, so actually, it's funny. I think in one of my team meetings, we were just chatting, and the idea came up because, yeah, there are some really long web pages out there. And I think it is like a feature that I thought I would really love to see. And like my teammates agreed. And since I just joined Cohere, it seemed like a good use of a few days of my time to get familiar with our product. So it was a great way for me to learn about the API. I got to learn a new skill personally, how to make a Chrome extension. That's kind of cool. And it was just like, yeah, kind of like a fun project. I love to work on projects that feel like personal, like that, like I will personally be using. And so that made it really fun to work on. And also, like, gotta say, the Cohere API is actually a joy to use. It is so straightforward, well documented. The playground makes it so easy to play around with it, and yeah, it was just fun. Actually, I couldn't believe as I was making it, I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to do it. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. Like the playground's so fun to use. I also started using it too when I first started doing hackathons, and it's so straightforward. Um, yeah, so guys, definitely check out the playground if you want to play around. We have a question from LinkedIn from Sarah. She asked, I would like to know, what do you think a skill of yours that was the most helpful while working on this?
Oh, good question. Um, that is a great question. So this is like not a fun answer, but I think this is like a realistic answer. And I think the skill is reading documentation. Um, and actually, like I said, less so for the Cohere API, because I think that is really straightforward documentation. But for me, it was reading the documentation about Chrome extensions, like how to make Chrome extensions. And there are a lot of blog posts, resources out there, but they were surprisingly not comprehensive. And I had to do a lot of stitching together, a little bit from like this blog post, a little bit from the documentation here. And I think like in my day-to-day job, that is, a lot of what we do as software engineers is, um, we're not actually reinventing the wheel, but we are going in and like trying to understand what other people have already built and how we can make it work um, the way we want to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Um, I guess in terms of more questions, I was wondering, how does Condense handle websites that has have different sources of content, such as like photos, multimedia elements, or just like really complex formatting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So um, the summarize endpoint only supports text um, right now, and the so because of that, the extension also only supports text. So for now, it will just ignore photos and videos. Um, in the longer term, as um, our models get better at multimodal inputs, it would be really cool to just feed um, like an entire like loaded web page and be able to extract information from pictures and videos as well. But for now, we're not there.
For sure. Yeah. Just I guess just moving on in the future. That's something to note, and we can take that back to the Cohere team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You already went over, I guess, potential capabilities that could have in the future. Some improvements that you can make. I guess moving on, are there any similar projects that you want to take on? Other Chrome extensions, or like what's on your list of things to create? Because you mentioned that making personal projects is really fun thing for you to do.
Yeah, totally. Actually, to be honest, I think if I found the time, I would love to just keep working on this extension and polish it because it is, um, I'd say it's in like a 90% state. And there's like, that saying, like there's like, I'm gonna butcher this, but like there's like 90%, and then the last 10% is also like 90%, like getting all those details right. And so, for example, this is not ready to be published as a product. And that was never the goal because, Cohere is a platform company. Like we work on models and we have models to support developers who want to make the products like Chrome extensions. And so this is more of like a proof of concept for people to see. But if I had more time, I would have so much fun just like messing around with this for another couple weeks and busting down that list of customizations and making it into the kind of like robust product that I'd feel really confident sharing with the world. Because yeah, I really like using it when it works, and when it doesn't work, it's annoying. So I would love to like make it work all the time and not annoying ever.
Yeah, for sure, I can see that. Or like even polishing up the UI so that you don't have to go into the code, change the parameters, like
Totally.
building its own platform to just control that would be super cool.
Yeah. And I actually had like feature requests coming in internally,
Oh.
like from my manager, from my teammates. And I was like, yeah, like to my manager, I was like, yeah, I would love to implement that feature for you, but like, do you want me to like push back my other deliverables to do that? And he was like, actually, no, like we should focus on like our actual work. But yeah,
That's good to sound. Good to hear. That your the internal team's also having fun with that.
Yeah.
I guess along with that, what was their user feedback when they were using it?
Yeah. So their feedback basically made it into the customizations list. So one request was to be able to block running on certain web pages. The Google Doc example actually came from my manager. He was like, "This is great, but it's really annoying on Google Docs. I wish I could disable it." Also, requests about being able to change the summarization length. I think right now default it's auto, which usually is a longer summary, but sometimes like a 2-sentence summary is all you want, and reading like a 4-sentence summary actually feels a bit too much like a block of text. And not a feature request, but one of my teammates actually suggested the name, because at Cohere we like to have things start with CO, and so condense fits that, and it's also like relevant. So I took his advice on that, and it was very sweet. He was thrilled when he saw that I used it on the actual app.
I agree. That name is amazing. When I first saw this project, I was like, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess if there aren't any more questions, if anyone has questions, you guys can follow up. Reach out to Leila on LinkedIn. That comes to the end of our Maker Spotlight session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. If you guys are interested in presenting your own community demo to our Cohere community, you get live streamed to all our socials, you get interactions. Please reach out to me or Sandra on Discord or on LinkedIn. This is a really great way just to learn about new projects about Cohere, and just have fun and play around with it. This was
That's
a really
awesome.
amazing
Wait,
session.
Claire, how cool would it be if someone like took the condensed codes, worked on it, polished up a bit, and then came back on here and did their own developer
That
demo?
would be crazy.
That'd be so
Any
cool.
one of you guys watching can
Please.
do that. So please reach out.
I would be so happy.
Yeah, and then we can make this into a huge project, and then
totally.
we could see where it came from and where it started.
And the sky's the limit. You could use the Chrome extension code and plug in like the generate endpoints or the classify endpoints. You can be creative, play around.
Exactly. That's what the playground does for you. That's what Cohere does for you guys. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for joining, and thank you again, Leila. And hope you guys have a lovely day. Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye, Claire. Thanks.
Bye, Leila.